Hello and welcome back to this fucking angle and filming setup. I just realized you can see that I have not fully unpacked from the weekend. I will get to it. I'm totally an adult who can do stuff still. Anyway, hi, welcome back. My name is Lynn Jung and this is part 2 of my summer novel writing thing. Is Camp Nano in like a week? Is that a real thing that's happening? Yeah. Okay, great. So that changes things a little bit. Basically, this is a vlog series that'll be following me as I try to finish a novel before October 1st, which is when my summer vacation sort of officially / unofficially ends. It is currently June 22nd. I am behind. I just filmed part 1 of this, which was coming up with the idea and deciding on the idea that I want to write this summer. So I will link that below, and it is also conveniently on my channel, which you can watch. I don't know. You can if you want to. I honestly actively prevent people in my daily life from watching my YouTube videos. Okay, so this is part 2, and I'm going to be figuring out my synopsis and pitch. I explained this a little bit in the last video, but basically, writing a synopsis is a huge part of the outlining or planning process for me. I am a plantser. In any case, writing out a synopsis and sort of figuring out that baseline, the basic flow of the plot and the characters and the themes and all that, which is what a synopsis should do. That's really helpful for starting to figure out an outline. When I'm outlining in detail, I need to have an idea of where I'm going, so it's like a basic mini 1 or 2 page outline that I start out with. Hopefully that makes sense. So last video I decided that I would be working on a young adult fantasy retelling that, you know, just a little tidbit that I can throw out there. It is very sapphic, so happy pride, I guess, to myself. I have decided on this project because basically out of the ones that I had lined up in my brain, it is probably the easiest one to work on and the easiest one to complete in the amount of time that I am allotting myself. So even though it is a project that I have less of a clear idea of in my head, I am going to do my damn hardest to get this to work. So today I'm going to be figuring out as if I haven't already been vlogging for most of the day. In this part of the video, I'm going to be figuring out a bunch of logistical things, hammering out my pitch. I think coming up with comp titles is going to be really helpful for me. When it comes to this project, I just had a hard time figuring out its identity. So the tone, the voice, sort of like how dark I want it to be, those things. It is a high concept pitch, but it is a high concept pitch in the parts where it's like a sapphic retelling of X. Like, that doesn't give me much to work off of, and it is kind of exciting to think of the possibilities I have in front of me, and I do have a couple of ideas of what direction to take this story. So I think my order of events is going to be figuring out some comps, writing out the pitch, and then just sort of giving a stab at the synopsis. This won't be a very exciting vlog, and it is hard to like talk about writing a book when you can't really, or I don't really want to say that much about it, especially because like a lot of the details aren't hammered out, so it'll be interesting. I am excited for this. Maybe it's definitely a departure from my usual stuff, but in a lot of ways that feels bad because it feels like it's a departure because it's a little bit more generic. I think my goal is to make it less generic. I think that'll be the goal. Anyway, yeah, enough about that, enough about me. I'm just going to dive right into it and start to figure this shit out. So I will see you guys or talk to you guys in a little bit. So real quick, I wanted to show you guys the Scrivener setup for this project. You can see I have the outline set up. This will be where I try to do the drafting. I have figured out how to make drafting in Scrivener work for me, and it's basically just adding page breaks. I think not having page breaks, like the endless scroll option, was too much for me. The outline will be here, and I've divided my folders up into acts. So I'll do the individual scene cards first and then sort of sort those into chapters, especially because this is like a multiple POV. Characters, only 2 so far. The 2 point of view characters are Magdalena and Cosima. And spoiler alert, they are gay. Places, settings, I'm going to play with that a little bit more. And then notes, research, template, sheets. Lots of fun stuff going on. I went for this sort of like light academia classical aesthetic, which I don't know if I'll stick to. I'm really... Okay, this is going to sound stupid, but aesthetic and figuring that out is like a huge part of like a book's identity for me. I'm going to stop filming a blank screen. Yeah, figuring out sort of what the vibe will be, the tone, the aesthetic, like that visual component is very important to me, so I might have to change the way the Scrivener document looks, basically. That it sounds very shallow, but I swear to God, it's so critical. I don't know why, especially for fantasy, especially for secondary world fantasy. It's like the weirdest thing. Somewhat unfortunately, I think I've realized what my problem is, and it's that so far as I've been developing the setting for this book, it has been very much like a classic, not a classic, but Western inspiration. Like, I'm drawing a little bit from the Regency era, drawing a little bit from like just German German miscellaneous fairy tale era, and most of the characters are non-white and are specifically like coded to be very much Asian. So I think the thing that I'm struggling to piece together here is like Asian or Eastern characters in a Western setting and how that'll fly, and I am upset because it feels like I have been struggling for a really long time to not pigeonhole myself as someone who writes Asian fantasy, because I don't want to solely write Asian fantasy. I don't want to solely write Korean fantasy, but it feels like I can't draw from the same, well of creativity. Like, it's a lot more of a stretch for me. It is a lot harder to make more Western fantasy settings, secondary world settings, more unique or make them stand out, just because it's been done a lot by like a lot of people. Like, I don't know quite what to do here. I think a big inspiration for me right now is Howl's Moving Castle, like the Ghibli film, which I think feels very Asian but looks very Western in a lot of ways. And while it's not an exact comp, like everything else is different, that's sort of the vibe I'm going for, like making it feel unique to me while also drawing upon these Western aesthetics, culturally appropriating, as you will, and sort of trying to figure that out and place that, like make that work in my head when I've gotten so used to, like, I've been writing a Korean inspired fantasy for years and years, and that is the only secondary world fantasy I've ever written. It's the last thing I worked on, so this is definitely, I'm realizing, like, the setting specifically is a pretty big stretch for me, and I'm excited for that. That makes it like more intriguing to work on this, but also I'm like, damn, that is a very interesting dilemma that I feel like not a lot of non-POC fantasy writers struggle with, honestly. So yeah, I mean, now that I've identified the issue, it's going to be a lot easier to move forward, hopefully, and using like Howl's Moving Castle as a starting point, a very, very like very small starting point, hopefully will be helpful. I'm now looking at Pinterest to see different images and pieces of art that'll hopefully like help as well. And I think this will end up being a very like nature-y book, which is interesting because it is, a lot of it is takes place in a castle, so I can do some interesting stuff there with the contrast. There's a lot of like two worlds, mirror images, reflection sort of themes going on in this book, so that could be interesting to play with as well. I just have to develop those two worlds very well. Yeah, I'm gonna keep going and figure out the pitch for this. Oh, okay. I did it. I wrote a page and a half of synopsis. I have the pitch, I think. It's like a 2-liner. I'm not super happy with it, but it's what I've got. And I think I'm ready to start actually outlining, which is crazy. It's like barely noon. So I've accomplished a lot. I'm pretty happy with myself. And I guess that concludes this portion of the video. Yeah, sorry this one wasn't super visually engaging, but it is what it is. I think for the outlining portion, I'm definitely gonna take a step outside and do something. Yes, so I now have my pitch, my synopsis. I've got a lot more of a vision for what this is going to look like as a book and how it's going to feel. So I'm actually pretty excited to start outlining. Actually, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to use like a note card method and start figuring things out. From here, basically, I've got the rundown of the plot and character arcs and some thematic stuff, but I would like to go a lot more into detail. That's what the outlining process is going to entail. Sorry, I'm like looking for my note cards as I talk. Yeah, just figuring out the beats, figuring out which points of view are going to be exploring which scenes and that sort of thing. And then I will, after creating all my physical scene cards and sorting them, I will be putting that into Scrivener so it's all in one place. Jeez, like this is going a lot faster than I thought. So I think I had just more pre-prepared stuff than I thought I did for this book, which is exciting. So I am going to go ahead and start outlining. Yeah, I'm trying to keep everything relatively short because it's not like super visually interesting to come up with a synopsis. Actually, it's almost 2 pages. It's pretty long. I was worried that this didn't have enough going on, but I think it'll carry me through a good, like, 100,000 words is always generally my goal for any given fantasy novel, so hopefully it'll carry me through to that amount and be interesting, and if not, that's what revisions are for. So that's it for this portion of the vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time for my outlining video.